My name is Tona Thorn Dyer, and I'm going to talk about some stories about my third great grandmother, Eliza McDonald Clyde. This is a picture of her, and she was born in County Down, Ireland, in December 15th, 1831. Her father was James McDonald. Her mother was Sarah Ferguson, and her father did grew flax, and she would take and spin it on this wheel. This is how the flax is when it grows. This is how it is when it's already grown, and this is how it is as it is combed and flax, so that it can be used for clothes. And Eliza not only did this in Ireland, but when she came to America, she also spun clothes and shoes for her husband at the time, shoestrings and everything else. He was the only man in town probably that got to be dressed homemade. And so in 1842, the missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints came to their home. And James said, I want you to come into the home and we're going to listen to what you have to say. And from then on, they had church at their home. And they joined the church, their whole family did. And it wasn't long after that they decided they wanted to go to America with all the other families. And they boarded this small ship. Now, they're not like these big cruise ships that we use. Very small ship. Was called the Fanny, I believe. Anyway, and there were 250 people on that ship. And for a while, the weather was really nice. But all of a sudden, for 2 weeks, they had a terrible storm. And her brother went up on top of the deck, and he saw all the men had tied themselves to the post so they wouldn't fall off of the ship. And they finally arrived in New Orleans. That's where the route they took, so that they got on the Maid of Iowa. And the Maid of Iowa was owned by the prophet Joseph Smith. And so they went up the Mississippi River from New Orleans to Nauvoo, and that's where they settled in Nauvoo. And they helped with the temple. They set up a little place, and when we got there, they had a house for them. Hiram Smith said, here's a house, but there are no windows or doors. So when they came from Ireland, they brought all the tithing from the village, all the people's tithing. And when he got through with everything, he had 75 cents, so he bought an axe and cut open the hole for windows and the hole for doors. And they stayed there for quite some time. And then, of course, they left after 2.5 years and went to Iowa. And from there, they had enough money so that they could, savings, so it was in 1849, they wintered at Kaysville. In the spring of 1860 is when they started west. And all was going really fine until people started getting cholera. And that was near the North Platte River in, I believe, Nebraska, and wherever that was. And her father had made this coffin. He built this coffin for one of the other men, laid him to rest. And very shortly after that very night, this makes me want to cry, James fell sick and died. And they had no coffin for him. So his children said they broke up all the boxes, the wooden boxes, and they kind of lined the grave, and then they covered him, and on they went. And they also, the story is, they wanted him to be covered so the wolves wouldn't get him, because many times on the trail they would find people's bones, and so they'd rebury them. And so Eliza's mother was very distraught, and so she and her sisters and brothers had to drive the wagon the rest of the way, and there were 7 of them. And they got into Utah in about 1850, I believe it was, or 51. No, I think it was 50. And they found a house to live in. And shortly after that, Eliza married William Morgan Clyde. She met him, and his family had come, and his mother was Cynthia Davis Clyde. So his family had come before that. And they got married, and they went and bought a house on, I think it was on 4th East and 2nd, on 4th East and 2nd South, or anyway, it's east of town. I went there today to see if I could find where it might have been, but I don't know which house it was. And then shortly after that, in 1851, her parents came from what they used to call Mountain Vale, which is now Alpine, and brought them a house just very near there. And a fun thing that William would do, he built a playground because they had a grove of trees on their lot, and he built a playground for the children to play in, but they could not play on Sundays. They were very strict about that. And they had, he built her a little milk house because she milked the cows, she made the butter, she did the flax, spinning the flax, made his clothes, she made the vegetables, and they dried their fruits and vegetables. And that way they had kept through the winter. And everyone thought that Eliza was a very kind and woman, but she also got her little Irish temper up once in a while if people didn't do what they were supposed to. And she was a short woman but kind of stout. And this picture shows her. So do I look like her? Anyway, just recently my granddaughter had a little baby born, a twin, and she named her Eliza. And I think that's really neat. So we can come on. And I wanted to tell you about William Morgan just a little bit because he has a drum here in the museum. And that's okay, he can put that in. But anyway, that drum was brought all the way from Nauvoo because he was in the Nauvoo Legion. And she married a very strong man. He lived longer than she did. Another story is when William went east to help some of the people from England come over here, he met a woman, Sarah Bateman. He married Sarah Bateman and they brought her home and told Eliza, here's my second wife, which I don't think if it were me, I wouldn't have been very happy, but maybe they got along fine. And Eliza, and before they could live together, he had a place for, both of them, I believe. And then the government said no more polygamy, so the church said no more polygamy. So he didn't go to her anymore, but when Eliza died, then he did. And between both his wives, I think he had about 24 children. Big families, big families, because she raised them. And I do know a story, too, about Sarah. When she got here, she wanted to know, who are all those dirty-faced little children? Well, they were his and Eliza's, but, when they play in the playground, they're bound to get dirty. And Eliza also would let the children come and play in the attic. One of the ladies says that she used to play with the dolls in the attic and play on the playground, and she always had cookies for them and baked for them. And she lived till 1901. William Morgan lived longer than she did, but she lived a long time. And I just want to say that working in the museum and getting to know my ancestors is very important to me. And so some of them become very close to me. And I just want everyone to know that I'm very proud of my ancestors, and I'm grateful for what they have done for us.